Hello everyone, my name is TheMadScorpyon and welcome to another Devstream Insight preview. Now, I'm just going to go over it quick and brief. Now, they did mention that they would have an update on the site, so if you want a full article whenever they eventually come out, there you go. But at the same time, I wanted to give you a breakdown of what to expect when Act 2 comes around next week on the 19th, or is that the 17th? I can't math the dates very well, but next week on Reset. Starting off with the story, they did mention they are reworking it, so instead of the week by week like before, all of Act 2 will actually drop day 1. So if anyone wants to binge it out completely and just wrap up Act 2 in, say, a few hours of work, you can totally do that. If you want to do 1 week one day, 1 week another, and 1 week the next, you can do that as well. Now, I unfortunately already see a little bit of an issue because, yes, it makes it a little bit easier to wrap up the story, have it done, and then go about your business working on your raids, all your other things. So Tuesday doesn't have to be always, let me do the story and then let me do everything else. But I could already see an issue of people claiming that there isn't much to do when they do the story all in one day, and Bungie just saying, well, you shouldn't have done it all in one day if you wanted stuff to do. But I digress. From that point, yeah, you can take it from that point, and all of Act 3 will, now, oh, wait, hang on. Words. That it was how Act 2 is going to work, and Act 3 will work the exact same way. But moving on, they will be introducing new Battlegrounds across the next 2 acts. There will, of course, be 3 of them. Part 1, 2, and 3, they kind of act consecutively. When one ends, the next one will start. They'll have unique bosses from all 3, according to the Bungie. An example they gave was actually twin wyverns that teleport, that come in pairs. So, aside from that, the important part regarding these Battlegrounds, the first 2 Battlegrounds will be available with Act 2, and the last Battleground will be available with Act 3, so there will be at least a little bit of spacing between release of all 3 Battlegrounds. From that point, the new weaponry that they were starting to talk about in the live stream was, of course, the long-awaited solar rocket pistol. The example they gave of said pistol was an heel clip incandescent roll, if I recall. And then they also talk about an Arc 2 burst, which is another one of the new heavy burst frames that came with Final Shape. So there is one that isn't either from the raid or trials. You can have a more normal version. And then they also talk about the Perfect Paradox remake and how it might be very good. Obviously, it's a shotgun, but it might be very good for you combo blow hunters out there. From there, they did start talking about the artifacts, because I didn't realize this from before, but the artifact is getting a whole new bottom row. So there is an additional perk for tier 1 through 5. The first of which is actually anti-barrier sniper rifle, which a lot of people are a fan of, which I was a fan of it back during Season of the Chosen, but then, you know, when other things like anti-barrier sniper around, if it was anti-barrier sidearm, I would be less excited, of course, excluding rocket pistols, but, you know, it's there as an option, but there is several more sniper rounds to opt for, because the artifact is mostly sniper and solar damage when you go to the next ones. The next is a discounted scavenger mod buff, but they did specify it was only for special weapons, so possibly that might have been a misspeak on the side of the devs, because I don't know how you can just change scav mods for just special, although I forgot they were. Oh no, they're elemental. Never mind. I kind of forget what state we are when it comes to those mods. But moving on, there is next a incendiary sniper precision buff, where anytime you hit a solar sniper precision, you do scorch, and that includes the exotics of Still Hunt and Whisper. They talk about this a lot. In addition to that, ignitions get increased damage and radius. So Big Bonk, Up East Titan maybe? And then there is a sniper exclusive precision instrument buff, where damage with a precision shot will boost your damage stability and reload speed on precision hits, and this is a stacking buff, and from that point heavy snipers will grant more stacks per. So I imagine that a lot of people will be using Whisper and Still Hunt in combination with each other, and it might be a 50-50 of which exotic sniper is the damage king nowadays. From that point, they did talk about some PvE damage changes to the metas and everything else like that. First of all, that the Tex Machina advanced or aggressive lever scout rifles will be getting a global PvE damage buff of 30%, just to make sure that they can actually stick up in line with the variety of others. I don't know if that includes Time Worn Spire, the new Solar Vex Scout. I don't know if that's included, because he did say specifically Tex, although they do also say aggressive lever rifles. From that point, speaking of aggressive, Ariana's Vow is actually getting a buff for its anti-barrier shield capabilities of 67% damage buff against anti-barrier shield specifically. So they accordingly say that you're going to be able to two-shot almost any anti-barrier shield at any difficulty almost. So that's probably only the highest echelon that you won't be able to, but even still, if it's only a 3-shot, that's still pretty good ammo-wise, considering that it holds like 40 rounds, if I recall. From there, they are also tweaking Sniper Flinch in PvE, because obviously it is super annoying when you are fighting a boss. It is constantly throwing things at you, and you miss your shots just because you flinch. I realized that a lot after having several shots flinched on Nizarak for Pantheon and not getting Godslayer. But I digress. Basically, all Sniper PvE flinch is going to be cut in half, according to the devs. So it's going to be easier for your Still Hunts and Whispermains out there. From that point, they are removing the negative stat debuffs from Adept Mods. If you don't know, a lot of the Adept Mods are basically like, you get a shit ton more range, but you get way less more stability. Something like that. Instead, it's just more range, which also, it's not really a shit ton more. It's only like a plus 10, but I digress again. They are allowing you to just have more of a stat in a better fashion, basically more rewards for adept weapons, and in tune to that, they are talking about more mods that are coming, but they don't tell us much more from that. Apart from that, though, something that is bad news first, good news after, they are nerfing the armor swap method. If you don't know, let's just say, for example, you had a rocket launcher, you had 7 rounds, you put on all 3 of your reserve mods, let's say you had 10 rounds. If you swapped to it and then rallied and then swapped the armor back, you would still have the 10 rounds from the 3 reserve, and you would be on the other armor, you only have so many. They are disabling this. They are making sure that whenever you swap between reserves, whatever your actual capacity is what you would have. So in this scenario, you would have 7, swap to the reserve armor, rally, get 10, swap back, you would be back to 7. But, as a caveat, they are globally increasing special and heavy ammo reserves by about 10 to 15% according to the devs. So that is also just something that is straight good, because now we won't have to rely on it so much for every single scenario. From that point, though, as well, they did mention that reserve mods will be made cheaper in general, and in addition to some of the artifact discounts, some of these reserve mods will literally be 0 cost at all times. So, you know, it's just going to be a lot of free energy about for the chest slot, it seems, even though I never seem to use all of it anyways. Now, aside from that, there is one slight bit of tuning previews they did mention in the live stream. First of all, that the Prismatic Hunter Swarm, Grenades, and Thread Specters are known and understand that it is a problem point and they will be addressed soon enough. Speaking of the same way, Twilight Axe and Hammer of Soul, or the Twilight Arsenal and Hammer of Soul. Supposedly they're getting a damage buff, but that is the only kind of inkling we get to the Titan reworks they have been mentioning. And from that point, the last bit that they did mention is that the Edge Transit Cascade Envious exploit is still coming to be fixed, so don't feel bad if you've missed out on it. It won't last long for getting like 24 rounds in a Cascade buff. I didn't even know it existed. From that point, they do actually talk about the Solstice a little bit. They give a preview of what the armor looks like, which if I can find a preview of it, I will share it on screen now. I doubt I will. That isn't just a screenshot right from it, which won't look so great. But aside from that, you will probably see it in another future video. But with that, that has been the Dev Insight stream. That is pretty much all the important talking points that they covered in the stream. Of course, they did have the Battlegrounds going on in the background, but I shall save the videos of those on when I get to it with the seasonal stories. With that, my name is TheMadScorpyon. I will see you in the next video.